Good evening and welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm Rick Morelli. Tonight on our show we're going to talk about some of the local issues taking place. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the city of Hazleton, the Hazleton Area School Board, along with a number of other issues throughout the greater Hazleton area. Here with me tonight are my two co-hosts, Dr. Dave Soar and Mike DeCosmo. Gentlemen, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Rick.
We just had a show before recapping a little bit about the upcoming election, and we felt it's important as we come back to a new season to talk a little bit about the major issues going on throughout the greater Hazleton area. And I think it's fair to start out with the city of Hazleton. Almost every day we read the paper, and I don't think it's unfair to say that we're seeing a lot of controversy with the city council, with the mayor, just as a group. I mean, the city itself has a lot of issues by itself, but there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguments and things that we really didn't see too much in the past, especially through the Barletta administration. What are you guys saying?
Well, I just think that there's a lot of unfortunately, disagreement. There's a lot of argumentation. There's a lot of different viewpoints that are not being able to be expressed within the council chambers effectively without sniping going on. And unfortunately, that really has reared its head way too much. Mm-hmm. And because of that, because of the questions, the council members have been asking, I think unfortunately some of the members of the administration in particular have taken this as direct confrontations on them, mm-hmm. direct attacks on them. In politics, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You've got to ask questions. If you're going to make decisions, you guys have both been in that important decision-making process and making decisions as, be it lawmakers or as school board members and the like. But unfortunately, what's happening now is if you don't agree with me, if you don't accept what I have to say, then you've got a personal vendetta on me. And I think that's created such a consternation in the city that now, unfortunately, it's taken steps that the mayor and many of the department leaders, department chairs, are not there. Mm-hmm. How, in Lord's name, then, can you make honest decisions?
It's impossible and it's not right. And I don't know what the public thinks, but I personally think, and I agree with you, how could two different groups, the mayor, the council, who have to work together for the betterment of the mm-hmm. city, not be at the same meeting to discuss the issues? I find it almost impossible to have a good working relationship, but how to communicate and get things moving through.
A couple points, Rick, which I've just noticed, and Dave sort of hit on it, but the people in this council, you could see, just don't like each other. I mean, it's become personal, and one of the things I found, unfortunately, in being in politics is you have to grow real thick skin. Mm-hmm. And it can't be a situation where the minute someone disagrees with you, that your thin skin becomes so thin that, you try and solve the problem by screaming and shouting, and that's what I see happening from afar. I haven't attended one council meeting, but again, I go back, and Dave and I have talked and sort of debate at this point before in the past. This never would have happened when I served on city council, not because we all loved each other, but because we had a weak mayor form of government. So the mayor and department heads had to be at all the meetings together. So, I mean, there was no council hiding from the mayor hiding from the council, and all department heads were there with this strong form mayor of government. I didn't think we'd ever see this when the charter was passed, but now you could see that I think there's a real roadblock to progress, and the worst part is, I mean, we just saw the city administrator resign because of stress and pressure. But I don't know if the Hazleton city budget, Dave, has ever been in worse shape. At a time when, I mean, there should be more cooperation than ever, we're seeing, I think, less.
It's always had its issues, and it certainly has its issues now, and that's part of the challenge. I mean, even with a group working together, it's tough enough to find the answers and to find the vision to work together. But when you don't have a group working together to sit down, I mean, the city of Hazleton needs a lot of change for the better. I mean, we have challenges, and that's not to blame anybody through the crime and the budgets and everything else that we have. You need groups to work together, and again, seeing the infighting, seeing some of the things taking place, they need to put this thing together. They need to call a timeout and say, listen, and again, it doesn't matter if you get voted down 100 times. I could assure that from being with county council, because there's no one's who's been voted. But you have to be on record. You got to fight and still have the voice. And Mike, you know as well as I do, you could be voted down all the time, but if you have the right voice, you could still make your case to the public, and it's all how you do it.
And that, unfortunately, again, is just not happening here, because voices are not when you ask a question, and you've got every right to ask those questions. I don't care if it's, and it may be hard questions, but those are the ones you're supposed to ask in city government. How are you going to pay the bills? Where is the money? What is going on? Now you have a real problem here as well, in the sense that you've got an administration which is full-time. And unfortunately, they are there during the day. They see this all the time. And, you know, sometimes just being so close to things, I think, also makes you forget that others who aren't around it all the time don't understand the same things that you do. You may have all of the answers as to why you want to do things a certain way. You've got the plan all mapped out. But if you've not sold that plan, if you've not explained that to people who unfortunately only come in once every other week, that read their mail and now need to make decisions based on what you're giving them, but on the spare of the moment, because there are no such things as work sessions anymore, which I disagree with, because that's where you really hash a lot of this out. Right. But how can you expect these people not to have the questions, not to want to raise the issues, when they don't know the same thing that you do? And I think that's become a definite problem in this city government right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And Rick, I think even someone like you is probably experiencing the same things that City Councilman Hazleton would be. I mean, you know, as a council member with the new county council, it's virtually a part-time position. You know, so all of a sudden you're being hit with legislation and meetings saying, we won your vote tonight, this looks like it's good, or you're getting an email 2 days in advance. I mean, that's where work sessions, as David said, were great. But once again, getting back to this division, and I can't believe it's happening. I mean, everyone says in a local election, yeah, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but it really doesn't matter, I'm just registered. But it still seems to be coming down along party lines. You know, I mean, you would think at some point there'd be some independence there in these votes.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, when you're getting down to the real issues, sometimes, and even in the worst of the political times we've seen people work together, but there is a strong division, and I think it's coming down more personal than anything else. And I have to agree with you regarding the work sessions. As a part-time elected official, you have a job, you have a family. It's almost impossible to read all the documents that come across through email and to fully understand and to be expected to make a good decision the night of election. Work sessions are critical. We still don't have it. I'm fighting for it in the county. Work sessions are important for the individuals to get there, roll up your sleeves, debate professionally, fight it out, and spend hours. And then when it comes time, you vote and you're on record. Exactly. But you know, again, I think they're taking the wrong path on this, and you know, things are going to change in a couple of years if they don't clean up their act. I do
think that one of the things that's happening right now too is that, unfortunately, denying these department heads to show on up makes things even worse. Now, and I'll admit, I go to the council meetings because I want to see what's going on. The evenings that Chief Giantria has been there, and he's been there almost all of these meetings so far, and I have to give him credit for that. There have been issues with a lot of ordinances that he's been putting forth, and because he's been there, he's been able to answer those questions. He's been able to satisfy the questions that all 5 of the members have. Yep. But unfortunately, you don't have that with a lot of other people. And that's where the confusion and consternation comes in.
Usually with the controversial issues, they're really not controversial until you have someone answer the questions, and they're pretty simple.
Right.
Rick, to me, the buzzword today in politics is transparency. And I was talking to someone the other day, and a local attorney said to me, he said, well, what do you think about what's going on in the Hazleton City Council? And I said to him, I think Jack Mundy and Gene Mope are playing magnificent minority politics, because all they're asking for is more transparency in government. Yep. I said, and I don't think there's a person who lives in this area who doesn't want more transparency. I said, so I said that they're on the right side of the issue.
Government. Yeah. And if you're looking, if it looks like you're trying to hide something and you're just trying to avoid talking about that elephant that's in the room, again, the people are picking up on it. They may not come and they might not speak, but I'm telling you, at the coffee shops, they're talking about when they read the newspapers.
Tell your son, tell your daughter, I'm going to give you some medicine. You're going to have to take it, and you're going to like it because it's going to make you feel better. Yeah. And how long did you have to fight to get that into them? Yeah. Because whether it be the smell, whether it be the looks, whether it be, they just didn't want to take it. And that's unfortunately what you and I are witnessing right now.
Well, and again, you know, I'm not trying to pat Lou Bartlett on the back, but I think whether you agreed or disagreed, at least back then, and it was controversial, you had the dredge issue, but you had a plan in place, whether you agreed with it or you didn't. You were talking about the amphitheater, you're talking about different things coming to the area. I'm not seeing that right now. I'm just seeing a status quo. I'm saying, yes, we have to find ways, you know, again, and again, I'm not trying to be critical to anybody, but we're seeing some different things. Mary Newsy in the paper recently asked the local charities to help out with the city. I think it's a controversial move. I don't think it's going to even come close to passing, but I don't think those are the type of items that are going to get people excited. And
it's not what's going to get this city out of its financial distress. If you're going to ask people who are trying to care for those least amongst us who have goods, who are trying to make it, and now you're going to ask them to give. These are the people that are hurting the most. These are the people who, I serve on a number of these boards. I'm on the United Way. We have desperately tried to get more money allocated for a lot of the organizations that we support through there time after time, and unfortunately, the last few years, it's been tougher and tougher because as the economy goes south, fewer and fewer people have that much more to contribute.
yeah.
So you can't ask those people.
No, I agree, and that's tough. And you know, the one thing that I've learned, again, people understand they're going to pay taxes, but when you show that you're wasting the tax and it's not being used, and again, you're saying arguments, you're seeing fighting and everything else, and now you're going to give charity money to possibly things that don't look
right.
not on the up and up, but aren't being like they're not being spent wisely. You know, that's going to get the people's ire up.
Even under the old system, and you worked under the old system, Mike. You all had your plan. Whatever department you had your plan of action for the year. We're going to do X, Y, and Z as long as there's the money. If you lost some money, then you maybe withdrew X, but you did Y and Z. But you always had that game plan, and I think that sometimes the game plan is being hidden too much now. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, Dave. You know, and one of the things that came out of the article when they were talking, you know, with the game plan, you know, in terms of going after the nonprofits, and once again, I think it's an issue that could become somewhat divisive in the community, and I picked that up from the article in the paper. But you know, the people in the nonprofits, like you said, who are really struggling, they're saying, how can you be coming after us for taxes right now, but then granting new KOZ status to new businesses in Hazleton? I mean, people are just saying, you know, once again, I'll go back to a buzzword, but all people want in taxes is fairness. You know, everyone wants to pay their fair share, you know, but if I think this guy's getting away with something and I'm paying his share, that's when people get upset.
That's exactly it. It's fairness, it's transparency, and you know, again, people are paying attention. But we'll see. We're going to take a break. We're going to move on to some of the other issues, and hopefully I don't think we're being critical to any one person. I think it's the entire group, and it's just something that we're seeing out there with the city. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Inside Scoop. We're here talking about some of the local issues in the greater Hazleton area. We'll be right back. Stay. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm here with Dr. Dave Soar and Mike DeCosmo. Moving forward with some of the other issues locally, school district, always a lot going on. Just to kind of recap some of the things that have taken place in the last number of months. Overcrowding continues to be an issue. Expansion. There were recently a number of raises to administration that we could talk about, whether it's justified or not. Taxes did go up. And recently, being from Schuylkill County, McAdoo, there are a number of parents coming to the school board just recently because McAdoo, which just had an expansion, is overcrowded because of AYP. Kids can now go wherever they want. McAdoo made AYP over the past. Kids flooded the schools, and even with an expansion, now we have overcrowding in McAdoo. So challenges in the Hazleton Area School District. Moving forward, as well as let me mention that the two buildings that they purchased, they can only pay for one of them. So anyway, moving forward with those issues. Dave, your thoughts, what do you see?
I'd like to take some aspirin on that. That, you know, you don't even know really where to start. As a teacher, I'm going to go back to the PSSAs and the scores and the actual academics of it. Right now that investigation is still going on. Actually, I'm quite surprised that it hasn't been cleared up as of yet. It's almost it's almost a year now that we were hearing about this investigation that was going to take place. Most other school districts have either been found guilty or exonerated, and most of them, in all honesty, have been exonerated. And I would still be hoping that Hazleton will be in that category as well. There are all kinds of things that are strange and anomalies that cause scores to be as they are. So I don't think that necessarily there was any kind of cheating that was going on here. Be that as it may. You know, working with just the education here, we've got to spend as much money and as much of the time on the academics of this school district as we are some of the other problems, whether that be still yet the swimming pools, or whether still be that the some of the busing problems and God knows what other kind of uniforms or whatever else that we're doing. We've really got to spend a lot more time on that, and I would hearken to the school directors to really, we've got to get more and more into place what's best for the kids.
Right. Mike, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, everyone says it's always about the kids, and that's where it should be, as Dave said. You know, I mean, that's what our end product is. I mean, there are purchasers of the product. They could choose to go anywhere. And this alleged cheating that went on in PSSAs, some interesting statistics today. Once again, the biggest charter school in the state, the Chester Upland School, again, one of the schools being investigated. Again, this year, their scores have gone down by 30%, not at the much more stringent standards. You know, in Philadelphia school district, 60 of the 63 schools have dropped. They were under investigation. Now, again, much tighter standards. However, most teachers I talked to in the school district, and administrators also said, hey, listen, if the state, you know, isn't happy with the way the test is being administered, have them come in and do it. You know, maybe we shouldn't be doing it in the first place because this is a state-mandated test. But having said all that, Rick, you know, once again, the school district, I mean, what I find disconcerting right now, and I'm telling you, like I said, I get a number of people coming in my office. You touched on the administrative raises. And when something passes by an 8-to-1 vote in the school board, you know, generally there's consensus. You know, the studies were done at the, you know, they pay market rate. This is what superintendents and assistant superintendents are being paid throughout the state. So they're saying this is what the market will bear. But I think it sends a terrible message when you're negotiating with the people at the bottom end of the totem pole in the school district. Yep. Well, when I see that the custodial workers are being offered a nickel an hour and 10 cents an hour, I don't know how you could justify the top money going up here and people at the bottom of the pay scale, yep, once again being kicked to the curb.
Well, and I understand that argument. Well, let's look at state statistics. But, you know, I'm a believer in being a leader. And sometimes school districts like this Hazleton area, which is the 16th largest, needs to say, listen, we're not going to follow those trends. We're not up to par with our scores, with what we're saying. Before we go out and give raises, maybe other school districts need to pull their raises down, number one. Let's not forget some of the major issues that took place here. Remember, there was a tax, the library fees, taxes, whatever you want left. That was $700,000 extra to the school district budget. The taxpayers didn't get back that money. The school district still raised taxes. We'll go back to Morelli, who sat at home for a year, got paid $130,000 plus to sit at home. You got the raises going on. You built 2 schools. And again, what do you have to be accountable for this. And go back to your point, if you're going to give out these raises to these administrators, let me guarantee you one thing. When you're going to go sit at the table with the teachers the next time around, you think that they're going to say, oh, we're going to take a year off and give you a 0. Expect this school board to get the biggest fight ever from the teachers union because of those raises. And that's what's going to happen. Those people, and not that the teachers are at the bottom, but they're saying if you're going out and giving those raises, don't think we're going to sit here on the side and work and hit all these challenges that you're facing us with. And that's what's going to take place.
And one of the problems with that is that all of this transpires during a time period when most people are now beginning to decide more and more, what are we going to buy in the grocery store? How much money can we put in the gas tank? And we're seeing raises like that. And that does poses a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. I know that you keep on talking about market, we keep on talking about all this, but I think you're right. I think there comes a time when you have to turn around and say, you know what, we can't do that right now. And that becomes one of the issues. So, you know, it's a difficult pill to swallow. I'd love to see everybody get what they want to, but as administrators, they are good people. And you know what, they're doing a tough job.
Do a great job and a hard job. But that's the part of government. It's sometimes, like you just said, you have to say, time out. You got to look at the big picture where we're here, and it's going to be tougher for these guys to fight. And you know what? It's going to be just a matter of time till the public really starts to get mad and sees everything and says, listen, we got to make some changes here because we're not justifying, we're not seeing the PSSA scores, we're not seeing some of these issues being resolved and the money keeps going out.
Well, and getting back to Dave's point, Rick, let me just tell you, and I could tell you in my tax office, where I've said many times we see 30, 40 people come in a typical day, other than the Sam Morello salary buyout, this has been the most controversial issue. I haven't had one taxpayer, David, come into the office and say they were in favor of the administrative raises. So, I mean, the people in the general public, you know, are just against it. This has been a very unpopular move.
And this is what ends up happening then. Let me play the scenario out for you step by step. People get upset with these because they start talking about, and they compare them to, you know what, I'm having trouble filling my gas tank right now, whatever. And then they hear and they see the article in the newspaper that PSSA scores have not been reached in the Hazleton Area School District, or X number of schools have not reached average yearly progress. So now it becomes, you blankety-blanket teachers, you're not teaching my kids right, it's the principal's fault, it's the teacher's fault, now they want to raise again, let's show them this time. And all it ends up doing is pitting the two sides against one another, the students and their parents against the educators and the administrators, and it shouldn't have to be that. You know what, they all should be in this together to saying, how are we going to create an atmosphere where education is going to be the premier idea, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right, and you're right on target with, you know, we need to pull this community in and believe in this, in the school district, in our education, and to show value. And you know, I've been kind of critical with this magnet school, and I think the jury's still out. We will see. I am critical certainly about buying two schools and not using both, because we're talking budget problems, and I guarantee you, when you fill up that new school with teachers, you're going to see the budget go up. I've seen it when we rebuilt the castle. You're going to see it again. But we'll see how it affects the district, how it affects schools, or the scores and everything else. And you know, again, I give them credit for being coming up with some new ideas, and I think that you do have some good administrators. I think Antonelli and Basic, and these guys are on the right track. But the moves, some of the things we're seeing all together, have to be questionable, where the money is being spent.
The more that you have money in those kind of areas, then you have to start questioning, what about the technology? What about the books? What about, you know, when Johnny and Mary or Susie take that book home at nighttime and the book is falling apart, and the book is a 2000 edition instead of 2012 or 2011, that's when mom and dad get upset.
Yeah.
And it's the little things like that, which are not oftentimes so little.
Exactly. Well, again, you know, school districts, it's challenging. Obviously, we're being a little critical, but again, they're elected officials, and a lot of them have been there a long time. That's part of the job that they need to be held accountable for. One thing I want to talk about locally, Butler Township, and this goes back to the election. And I think this is even though if you don't live in Butler Township, you could relate to this. There's a question on the ballot, referendum of going from 3 supervisors to 5 supervisors. And I think that's a debate out there with your local government. What's best, 3? 5, again, County Council 11, School Board 9. You have City of West Hazleton who have 7, but they're in districts. We see a lot of different patterns. I don't know going from 3 supervisors to 5 will make Butler Township that more efficient. I don't know how the vote's going to go. What do you think?
I don't think it doesn't make government any more efficient. It may not necessarily solve any problem except, and the exception here would be if you feel that the 3 supervisors are not fully representative of the entire region, that now the population of that township has become too large to have 3 representatives represent you properly. Then you go to 5 saying, you know, but I personally, my belief would be that you'd want to make them mandated to particular areas, if that's your reason. If you don't have any good reason like that, then you're doing it for cosmetic reasons, and then I don't think it's useful. Yeah.
It all comes down to the candidates and the people. With 5 people serving, Rick, that tells me we'll have a 3-2 majority instead of a 2-1 majority. You know, I mean, you're making majorities bigger, but I just don't know where efficiency and effectiveness comes in.
You know, obviously, I think there's a benefit of having more eyes and ears over it. But again, we're talking a township, and there's differences between townships and counties and school districts, and that's really the debate. Is, you know, Butler Township's Butler Drums. It's a great community, and really we haven't seen too many problems, too many issues. I'm sure they've had their controversies, and there's some small things we don't see. But I don't really think it's going to make that area better, in my opinion.
But it is a growing community.
Yes.
It is a growing community, and again, There may very well be a lot of newcomers in that area too who are saying, look, I want my voice heard.
Yep.
And like I said, this would be the reason that I would see. If it isn't for that reason, then I say no.
Well, and again, you make a good point. Representation, having more people around does make a lot of sense. And, you know, that's one of those, this is one of those items. I don't think there's a right and a wrong, and that's why we want to bring it up. I think it's a healthy debate and for people to think about their local government and what's
It'd be
best.
interesting to see in the election night, or at least a little bit prior, you know, where do the existing supervisors sit? What do they want?
Yep.
Why do they want it? Who are the factions within the township themselves who are actually asking for or will be leading the battle against? And I don't know that. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. And
getting back to West Hazleton's form, which I really do like, and I used to like the old school board form of representation, but, you know, somewhere like Butler Township, I know Beach Mountain, for instance, one of his biggest blocks. I don't know that Beach Mountain has ever been represented by a Butler Township supervisor, but, you know, with an expanded board, you might give an area like that to get some representation, their problems heard. So, you know, I mean, geographically, it could be good.
One thing I know, people in this area, I think all over I agree that people want representation. It gets confusing. I've heard that. I fought for it. And I think that even in a township the size of Butler, it's something that should be looked at. But again, gentlemen, good debates, a lot of very important issues on hand. Again, I'm sure we'll always have something to talk about throughout our area. But glad to be back. Thank you for joining us here on Inside Scoop. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk to you a little bit about what's going on here in your area. Have a great evening.